My friends and many legends, let's just stop for a second and congratulate ourselves for being early to the show. Over the last week, we've seen the telltale signs that crypto is indeed going to have another huge bull market in 2025, something that, of course, by now, we're all very well relieved to be assured of. However, I must say, underneath the surface, there are factors stacking up for a crypto crash of epic proportions in 2024 that will, at worst, of course, give those of us who haven't been as fortunate as to buy the lows another great shot at dirt cheap prices. And looking at the possible economic layout for this coming year, market forecasts are becoming more and more uncertain. Today, we're going to be diving into the factors that could actually cause the crypto markets as a whole to capitulate before massive gains arrive in 2025. So first of all, the Bitcoin network's creation in 2009, I know, let's start way back over there, marked the very beginning of an asset class that has made billions of dollars for some and of course left others feeling anger and I guess despair. Now, during this time period, low interest rates and massive economic growth created the perfect environment for Bitcoin to flourish. But now, after a sustained period of economic stagnation as well as high levels of inflation, questions are beginning to arise about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market's ability to prosper in such a stressful period. Although overall, I think we can all agree that the world is ever more moving into a position to adopt Web3 technology in general, as I constantly touch on this channel. But there is still a strong case to be made that events unfolding across the world will have a cataclysmic effect on the crypto market in the coming 12 months. Now, based on market analysis by prominent names in the space, there is a notable inverse correlation between 2-year US Treasury yields and the crypto market. Now, using this information, it's pretty easy to imagine that if interest rates continue to rise, the strain placed on risk assets could grow stronger, causing, of course, prices to fall across all crypto assets. Now, considering that the New York Stock Exchange has been around for over 200 years, yes, believe it or not, 200 years, and other stock exchanges are known to date as far back as 1531, we're able to access, in that case, historic data that makes it considerably easier to determine what factors affect the traditional markets. But of course, this can't be said about crypto. As you all should hopefully know by now, the crypto asset class has barely scraped past a decade old, let alone two, which makes most of what we could use to predict future events in traditional markets very well much so obsolete. Crypto is unfortunately built purely on speculation, and we are unfortunately tied to the outcome of what happens in equity markets and the global economy in general to just dictate our path forward. And so, of course, with that in mind, starting in June 2022, the Fed began hiking interest rates to deal with rapidly climbing inflation, otherwise known as quantitative tightening, which has been the most aggressive monetary policy in decades. Because of this, financial markets as a whole saw a sustained downtrend, and now, a little over a year later, we actually finally reached a point where the Fed has started to slow them down, right? Well, a large group of market participants think that the Fed will not continue to raise interest rates. It's hard to guarantee, of course, still what direction it will be taken in. Inflation has actually began to tick back up again, which could result in another interest rate hike, the outcome of which would be absolutely devastating for crypto. What's that? How devastating? You may be asking yourself, well, historically speaking, there is a large crash leading up to the beginning of a new bull market, typically dropping prices around 50% overall, yes, 50, drawing previously standoff investors who are kind of willing to take on higher risks, such as myself, definitely guilty, reversing the crash quite quickly. Now, there is 4 FOMC meetings due to occur in the first half of 2024 alone, meaning there is a solid chance we could see something like this happen around the Bitcoin halving in April. Again, remember, there are always snipers ready to take very fast action, of course, myself included, if that ever did happen. So if you do want to obviously take part in that, if it does happen, you got to start preparing now. We must also consider, of course, that the US government, as well as several other governments, have become increasingly, well, to suffice to say, hostile towards the overall crypto marketplace. From President Biden's proposed 30% Bitcoin miner tax to, of course, Elizabeth Warren's comments on building an army to go after crypto. Yes, you heard that here first, an army. In fact, the recent attacks on Israel have renewed Elizabeth Warren's interest in the crypto space and fueled her desire to attack our ecosystem. But is it possible that her and her alone's revival in her attack against crypto will cause a market crash? Well, suffice to say, we can only wait and see, but I probably would doubt it. Now I get it, right? This is kind of a very hard pill to swallow, coming off the incredible news that the SEC may actually pass up to 9 pending Bitcoin ETF proposals and the dropping of the lawsuits against 2 Ripple executives. But it is important to remember as the hype dies down. Of course, what goes up must come back down again, and while this pump feels like, oh my god, we have to get in now, it's going to be the be all and end all, likely it'll come down almost as quick as it's gone up again and give us a bit of breathing room, at least before, I guess, the mid to end of 2024. And with that said, let's now shift the conversation to the environmental impact discussion. Yes, as we all know, Bitcoin is a proof of work network, and this means that the Bitcoin network requires powerful mining rigs to stay running, otherwise known as ASICs, or just in plain English, purpose-built machines made specifically to mine Bitcoin. They do nothing else. As a fun fact, a mining facility in Kazakhstan with 50,000 mining rigs costs about $1 million in electricity per month to run, and that's in a country where electricity is frankly just quite cheap. It's estimated that one Bitcoin transaction requires around 1,449 kilowatt hours of electricity to complete, with other sources saying a variation of that number. Either way, that's around an equivalent of 50 days of power for the average US household. Because of this, the race is on to find efficient ways to power the Bitcoin network, and the incentive, of course, is just being a way to cut costs and improve profit margins. Because after all, that's pretty much the main reasons miners are mining Bitcoin. Now, there are several ways to, of course, look at this scenario, and the implications of the problem still remain until there is a viable solution, possibly creating trouble for Bitcoin and therefore the entire market in the days to come. Now, you have to understand, when the halving comes, a miner's revenue is technically instantly cut in half, and if there is no way for them to profit over an extended period of time, or in other words, if the price doesn't start going up, it is hard to continue operations at full speed. Even worse, a Bitcoin miner may begin selling their BTC holdings to just simply break even, causing what's called miner capitulation, where miners begin selling their BTC holdings to remain above water, and when they start selling, it drops the price, and then other miners join in, and it just continues to go down and down and down, hence the capitulation. And because of this, in recent days, many Bitcoin mining companies have been searching for ways to utilize renewable energy sources to minimize their impact on the environment and also access the cheaper energy to continue operations in those desperate times, but this change has yet to fully at least take effect. It is not something to be overly concerned about, however it does create another attack vector for governments to possibly dig their claws into, minus of course the whole capitulation scare as well. So let's just take a second to step back from blasting poor old granddaddy of crypto Bitcoin and take a look at another issue that is on the horizon, which is relating to institutions and the possible tax laws surrounding cryptocurrencies in general. Since crypto as a whole is still lacking a distinguished legal framework, we're left with a lot of unanswered questions that put institutions looking to get involved between a rock and, suffice to say, a hard place. Most institutions, and I think I can speak for most of them in this case, would rather avoid the asset class entirely than take a risk they can't fully understand the implications of just yet. In the coming months and years, the hope of a US bill passing that provides clarity to the market continues to be seen in discussions with many constitutional hearings, with the recent bipartisan agreement to move forward with a bill, which is pretty good news. But no matter what happens, whether it occurs in 2024 or not, you can best believe markets will stir when something is finalized. Whether the news will be great or horrible still stands, but I can almost assure you that it will be one extreme or the other. And I know I can hear what some of you are probably crying out already. Oh, but Kyron, Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. There's no way it can crash. Well, is that truly the case? Again, if we look at the available data, there is little to indicate this. Upon this point, Bitcoin as a network has actually grown exponentially, but it's still definitely considered extremely volatile to many, many people, obviously including institutions. Between its ties to the still very much so unregulated crypto market and the sour taste it has definitely left in many investors' mouths before, there's going to be a period of teething even if multiple EFTs are approved. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely going to blow up, but it's going to be a little bit more than just an instant thing in my opinion. In fact, if we actually go back and have a look in 2017, we can see that Bitcoin's price rose significantly and then crashed back down in 2018/2019, even as the M2 money supply, which for those who don't know measures the total amount of dollars in the world, rose 25.3%. While some would argue that Bitcoin had not been fully established at that point, the argument falls flat when we observe this metric. And remember, Bitcoin is still quite small at around a $500 billion market cap. And more recently, here is another table illustrating the recent inflation where Bitcoin failed to provide a hedge a second time. Now, could Bitcoin, work better now, essentially, that it's more established as an asset? Well, I guess consumer confidence in time will tell, but as I previously said, I just don't think it's going to happen at an instant. Now, along with this problem, we're also having the war in Ukraine. Yes, of course, it's a very obvious topic to talk about here, but it is one we do have to touch on. We do have a potential war, obviously, starting over in Israel, and all of this global instability is definitely something that Bitcoin has not seen before. With the United States joining this struggle in Israel, things may ramp up quite quickly here. We've all seen the devastating effects of how things progressed when the US invaded Afghanistan with a 20-year war that followed. So let's just hope that this isn't the case this time around. But of course, looking at every possibility, it's definitely something we should be concerned with, even if it is a very short-term thing. Events like this could cause a serious crash, especially since so many countries this time are now offering support to one side of the fence or the other. Yeah, things could escalate quite quickly here. So this, of course, unfortunate situation could last a year, a month, or a day. But whichever is the case, it is highly likely that we will see some form of a pullback in the crypto markets due to, of course, an escalation in the news. I say, of course, to obviously be ready, as horrible as it does sound, because this will create opportunities to win when others are fearful and running away. It just doesn't sound very good coming out of my mouth, profiting when others are potentially losing their lives, but hopefully you guys understand what I mean here. Now, speaking of what others are doing, I guess, we must remember to consider overall market sentiment. This is very important. I challenge you to go on Twitter and just listen to the things that people are saying and preaching. To be honest, it's quite concerning. You've got people on one side calling for a super cycle and Bitcoin to hit 250k in the coming bull run, which of course is propagating even more since we heard the ETF rumors. Now, typically, when everyone is saying one thing, what do the markets do? Well, they do the opposite, of course. Does anyone here remember what happened in 2021 when every man, woman, and child and their dog was screaming for Bitcoin to hit $100,000? Yeah, all the laser eyes and calls to mortgage your house and FOMO in. Yeah, we saw it happen there, of course, as well. The market came so close just to convince people those predictions were right. And of course, then what happened? Now, as much as I laugh at the bulls, or at least the really hyper bulls, admittedly, the social sentiment is mixed right now with a fair kind of mixture between bulls and bears. But the massive booms to the upside will likely only begin once the bears kind of capitulates and joins the bulls. So I guess watch out for that shift. Definitely easier said than done, because once that actually does happen, we're going to be on the right side, of course, of the bull run. Okay, so make sure you're holding some cash for that particular event, or at least an event like a retracement, at least a possible crash, because worst case scenario, if it doesn't come, you can always lob that money into a promising new coin when things really start to ramp up in the bull run, or just, I don't know, maybe sit on some cash. Is that really a bad thing? So with that said, guys, again, it's kind of a doom and gloom video compared to what the overall sentiment is in the market right now. Everyone's really excited and happy, and so am I. But I thought this might be a good opportunity to just remind some of you that, hey, while things move up, they come back down again, especially for those of you who've never been in a crypto bull run. We see some of these coins, Solana moving up 30%, and Chainlink moving up 25%. They do move down those same percentages in just the same period of time as well. So that said, guys, thanks for joining me today. Subscribe to catch all the latest news and analysis, and of course, drop a like if you got something out of today's video. And with that being said, if you're still here, why aren't you in the Discord server? Go to the links down below, join the Discord server. There's over 1,100 of us down there, and we have a really, really great like-minded community who is full of crypto enthusiasts that talk about this stuff every single day. It's literally the best place to talk about your favorite cryptocurrencies and even bounce trading ideas from other really intelligent people who are very, very profitable in the market. So with that said, you'll also see a little bit of me in there as well. We'll be on chats, communication. And with that said, guys, thanks so much. I'll talk to you all soon. Take good care. Bye.